Okay.
Okay, we are live.
This is Literary Roadhouse. One short story once a week. I'm Anais.
I'm Gerald.
I'm Maya.
And I'm Rami.
And this week we're discussing Ghost Birds by Nicolas Pizzolatto. Spoilers ahead. So this story is told from the point of view of Ethan Landry, a park ranger in St. Louis, Missouri. Ethan, a recovering heroin addict, copes with the deaths of his mother and girlfriend and his father's Alzheimer's through a combination of strict discipline inspired by Eastern philosophy and martial arts and thrill-seeking, adrenaline-pumping activities like kayaking, rapids, and base jumping. He jumps off the Gateway Arch in St. Louis on moonless nights and becomes a local creature of myth. One evening, a group of college students come to witness this legendary spectacle of a dim figure free-falling from the arch. One student, Erica, comes to witness what she believes is a thunderbird, a Native American deity. Erica and Ethan become romantically involved. Erica wants to learn base jumping. Soon he realizes that she is doing this for the same reason he is, because they are both afraid. After one terrifying jump, Erica's first outside of lessons, they agree to stop and Ethan eases on his strict lifestyle. He trades in his bamboo bat for a bed, works a few day shifts through the week, and becomes enamored with Erica and reinvests in his life. However, when Erica takes up base jumping again, he realizes she can't abide her own fear, stops his dangerous behavior, and he breaks up with her and regresses back to his life of discipline and solitude. One night, he base jumps from the arch for the final time, which is apparently up for debate.
Yeah, I think that part's up for debate. I think quite a bit is up for debate. What? Okay. Well, we'll get there. How did everybody feel top level about this story?
Very nice.
I liked it.
Anise?
I liked it too. For some reason, I felt the first half was stronger than the second half, but I still liked it.
Oh. Thank you for saying that, Anise. Thank you for saying that, because I'm sitting here reading the story. I'm like, is it because I'm so tired? Like, I can tell the writing is good. And I'm like, what's wrong with me? Something's not connecting in the second half. I thought the story ended and then it kept going. I was like, what happened here? And so I wasn't sure if it was me being tired or if anybody else felt that way. I definitely felt like the second half of the story was a lot less strong than the first half of the story. Mm-hmm. So let's dive in a little bit as far as, what do we think this story was about? Because there's a lot of stuff going on in this story. And I'm just wondering what you guys picked out as like the main point or theme of the story.
Yeah, I think it has to be sort of loss and fear of loss, really, for me.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. And I like how it's explored. It's explored in an interesting way, this idea that when you fear loss and you fear death, you then kind of just like act tougher than you really are and sort of like taunt it. It kind of reminds me a little bit of like, when like Simba in The Lion King is like, I laugh in the face of danger. Ha 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 ha. That line when he goes to the elephant graveyard. I know. Millennial reference. But it reminded me of that a little bit. And then it had these really strong motifs of sort of straddling two different worlds. There was the park and the city, and he's on the arch, and there were a few other instances of that, which was really interesting to me, especially because there's that point where he's straddling life and death and the kayaking accident, which I think carries throughout this entire story. Like when you're free falling, you're straddling that veil as well.
Yeah, for me, I think that what stood out for me more than the idea of loss, I mean, certainly that was in there, but what stood out more for me was the idea of what it is to be alive. And I felt like that was approached in several different ways in the story that I really appreciated, from both characters' directions, just, him attempting to work through his stuff in a way that made him feel alive, but he wasn't really living. And then he finally starts to live and it's too much. And then he goes back. And I felt like that was just a really strong theme for me.
Yeah, I think Maya put it better than what I was thinking, but I was thinking more along the lines of escaping life's difficulties through activities, but I think that goes along with needing to feel alive in some way as well.
Yeah, I think he also needs to have order in his life, doesn't he? He needs to be in control of his life. And the thing about the packing of the parachute as well, it's very strict and it's very
meticulous.
Very meticulous. Thank you. Yes, very good.
Yes, regimented,
Mm.
yeah, everything in his life is regimented, really. You know, right down to him attempting to live by an old, you know, Asian code of life, and he pretty much lives in a very ascetic way. Um, everything in his life is very much in a box, and he has certain expectations of himself. And when he gets too close to being outside of one of those expectations, he gets really nervous, and he tries to bring himself back in. He tries to control himself. Um, I think some of that comes from fear of what would happen if he didn't control himself, because he is an addict and he is the person that gave his girlfriend the heroin that killed her. And I think that some of this is, him trying to control that part of himself so that he doesn't go back there, as well as trying to control his emotions so he doesn't feel the pain of loss.
Yeah, yeah. He with the way his life is at the start. It's very ordered, and there are no surprises. He jumps at the same time every night, or each time he jumps at exactly the same time.
Hmm.
And he's frightened of being. I think he's frightened of being disorganized enough, and with people in his life that could upset him, and he could lose them. So I think that's really what he's concerned about with Erica.
Yeah. Found Erica to be a pretty interesting character. What did you guys feel about her? As I watched her, she was this young girl. She seemed happy, just kind of carefree. And then gradually you see this dark part of herself, this fear, and how she's acting out her own fear as well. I felt like she was a really good mirror for him.
Mm.
That's funny because I think if she were in any other story, I would have been more enthralled with her. But in this story, I wasn't because he is revealed in such a great way. Like that first half, really, the part that I love so much was the way that you find out stuff about Ethan is so surprising. And it's like almost every sentence ends with something that makes you go, what? So I didn't have that for Erica. So then having just come off of that for Ethan, by the time we get to Erica, I'm kind of like, okay, sure. Like I didn't dislike her, but I wasn't necessarily engaged.
Hmm. How about you, Gerald?
Yeah, I think she's really a foil for him, isn't she? So she's lively. She's got these desires. She's got this drive to do the jumping. She's also concerned about, she's nearly lost. So this sort of straddling life and death thing. Her mother lost a breast to cancer. So there's that sort of life and death thing going on there too, I think. So yeah, she wasn't that interesting a character, to be honest, really. But as a foil for him and as something to disrupt his life, I think, potentially disrupt his life, I think she serves a purpose.
That's interesting.
I agree. I didn't find her particularly
Really?
interesting.
See, I liked her because she's literally doing all the things that he's doing. She's aspiring to be him, and she's holding up this mirror to him that suddenly he realizes this isn't okay. And he's afraid that if she does all the stuff he's doing, he's going to lose her. Felt like that was really well done.
Yeah, but her as a character herself, I think she's there's not a lot to her. We don't know a lot about her, and I just think yeah, she's just there. Sorry.
Really?
Yeah, it's kind of how I feel. Although I will say the part where I liked her the most is when she totally has his number during the breakup. And what does she call him? She calls him out on being an addict, even though he had never told her that. And then she calls him Frankenstein of Eastern philosophy, which I thought was hilarious.
That was pretty good.
There's some
That
lots
was
of
pretty
fun
good.
bits in there, I thought.
I think, as I think about her, I feel like he was written about in a really blunt and blatant way. Like everything about him was laid out very clearly. I felt like her characterization was a lot more subtle, but I do think it was there. And the moment when I started to like her, I think, well, maybe this was a little bit of the writer trying to save the cat. The moment when I started to like her was when I recognized that what she was really afraid of was dying like her mother, and that's when I was like, oh, there's more here, and I opened up a little bit to her. But then I really had a hard time with the second half of the story, like significantly hard time with the second half of the story. So, she was in there a lot more. I don't think my problems with the second half had to do with her, but I'm still trying to figure out how exactly I feel about this story. You guys all say you liked it. I'm torn. I'm significantly torn about this story.
So what did you think about the second half? And why didn't it work? Both you and Anise. Why did it not work as well as the first half?
Anise, you want to go first?
Yeah, I'd say I'd still liked the second half, but just not as much as the first. There was something about the way that the first was written where it was like I said before, at the end of every paragraph, there was some new twist. Like first, he's just like some park ranger. So you have this image in your mind that all of a sudden he's dressed like some kind of like Mission Impossible spy. And then it's like, this is the thing he does all the time. Then he's dropping in all this like martial arts and Eastern philosophy stuff. And then there's the kayaking accident where he's like, so this is my death. Interesting. Like there's just all these little things that hook you in the first half that's missing from the second. And I guess maybe it's partially because I guess maybe the novelty of this character, by then you already know him, but there's still a way to do it when the author has already shown that he can in the first half. So I think I wanted more of that.
For me, the first half, I had a little bit of a problem with the very beginning of the story. I felt like there was so much thrown at me that it was actually a little bit confusing, but I ignored that and chalked it up to me just being exhausted. I gotta give some allowances because I can tell like it was really well written. The second half of the story where I had a problem was I actually felt like the story ended.
Where?
And then it kept going.
Yeah.
Right after the point where he gets the bed and he lets her into his world. He opens up and lets her in and they decide they're not going to jump anymore. I felt like that was the end of the story for me. And then it kept going for a while and it was like this lull. And then it was like the story started up over again to me. And that was a problem for me. That was a huge problem. I felt like there was interesting stuff in that second half, but that lull in between like these two distinct sections caused me problems.
Yes, but isn't that sort of Anaise's sort of rolling waves of emotion and conflict and stuff that she likes?
No, for me it felt like there was a portion of the story that did not need to be there.
Okay.
And that's when I started scrolling to see how much farther I had to go because I was actually confused.
Yeah.
I was reading, I'm like, oh wow, that was a great story. And then I'm like, what's going on? Didn't it just end? And then I'm scrolling, I'm like, oh, I guess it didn't end. Like that's what happened to me. It didn't stop at a part where there was ads, but it was significant. It was significant. I know you're trying to like give the writers some like leeway there, and and it was well written and it was competently written, but oh yes, I brought out the C word. Just twist. But if I'm reading a story and it feels like it ends and then it continues to go, and as it continues, it's not grabbing me, it's not interesting, and then it literally takes a whole nother couple paragraphs to pull me again, that's a problem.
I think there was a slight sort of, I think because the opening was so dramatic and so interesting and he's such a great character. Maybe there's a little bit of a lull in the narrative at the part where he's seeing his dad and he's sort of sitting down with him and that sort of stuff. That part didn't really need to be there. We get the thing about the father and that stuff, but yeah. But I didn't notice an overall. I just sort of tore through it. no problem.
The dialogue, I think, was kind of blah.
Yeah. So nobody else had the experience of feeling like the story ended and then kept going.
Annie
just me.
did, I think, didn't she? She said that. Well, she said the
I'm
second
afraid.
half wasn't as good as the first.
Yeah. The part with his dad wasn't very strong, and I don't know. I wanted it to be strong because that's a really big deal. And it wasn't as strong for me. But I feel like it wasn't as strong because it wasn't as emotional, and perhaps his lack of emotionality was important to his characterization because he's working to avoid emotion.
Mm-hmm.
So we can't really have this scene with his dad where he's falling apart or breaking down or declaring love for his father. It's not who he is.
No.
The part that I liked with the dad was when he was driving back and forth in front of the hospital. That part I liked. Yeah. But the portion before when he first goes in and sees his dad,
yeah,
I wasn't feeling it.
That whole sort of sit down with him and the father says about the grass being, dry and stuff. I just thought you've already told us about the. You've already told us about his father, introduced his father. We understand what the father thing is doing. So,
can you hear me? I don't. Yes. I can't even see you guys or hear you.
We can hear you.
We can hear you. You can't see or hear us? Yeah. Oh, that's a problem.
Just slightly.
Okay, well, I'll give her a minute for editing. It'll make it easier to edit if we just all take a break while she gets her butt back in here. And I'll be right back. Otherwise, we'll have a lot more splicing to do. Poor Annie's.
Just the guys left the stalwarts.
Let's just call them back.
Okay, I figured out the problem.
Okay, we've got an Anais in the house.
Yeah, my boyfriend was updating his tablet. I'm like,
what's up? He knows you're podcasting. What is his problem? Haven't you laid down the law? You're going to be a wife soon.
I have laid down. But apparently I'm not queen of this castle.
No internet between this hour and this hour on these days.
He's sassy over there, but I can't hear him.
He's sassy.
No. Okay.
Right. Updating his tablet.
Last thing I heard was Maya saying second half. She struggled to get through it, but I didn't hear the rest.
Well, it's okay. You can just live without hearing it. Annie.
She was saying that she thought the second half dragged and she thought the story had ended at one point and was surprised.
I had that too.
It ended, and then I was like, what's going on? And then I scrolled. And I was like, why? I'm confused. And then I went back and
I had that too.
That shouldn't happen.
When did it happen for you? When were you like, I thought the story ended?
It happened right around the point when they decided they weren't going to jump anymore. And he bought the bed and he let her into his life and he seemed to be opening up. And I felt like, bam, end scene, stage left.
Yeah. I thought it ended
going. I was like, what happened? Okay. That makes me feel better because I wasn't sure if it was just me.
No.
Is he now shaving? Go kick his ass.
This is just Costa Rica at this hour.
Wow.
Okay.
Wow.
All right. So, what was I was going to say, can we get, okay. So speaking of multiple endings, so I thought that it ended with him doing his final jump ever because he committed suicide. Am I the only one who got the suicide?
No. I didn't get suicide.
What?
But that was the final jump was the actual end, right?
Yeah.
He had his final jump because he was getting closure. I didn't see the suicide. I saw that as him getting closure.
It was definitely suicide.
Where does it say final jump? It never says final jump.
It's like the last line.
Okay, it doesn't say final jump.
It doesn't say that.
Right.
But when I meant final jump was the ending, the final jump in the story. Yeah.
I thought it actually said, no. He did not commit suicide.
Yes, he
I'm
did.
sorry. No, he didn't.
I was wondering if
I will build my case
talking about it.
Okay, build it.
Yeah.
I want to hear this mess.
Okay, so first, when Erica asks him, "Tell me about your first time," he says, "I tell her about jumping off Bethel Bridge in Cypress Park. I don't mention my perverse curiosity that cold morning, the clear idea I had as I dangled my foot off the bridge to hold on to the bundled chute the whole way down and never release it from my hand. So the parachute went open. So he had contemplated suicide once before by holding onto the chute, and then in the very last line." It says, I raise the window and let my leg slip out. Wind caresses me. I clutch the pilot chute. So in my mind, he doesn't want it to open. It's suicide.
Oh.
Okay, it definitely could be read that way. I'll admit that when I first read it and it said, now I am a ghost, I thought, maybe he did kill himself. But I shied against it because it just didn't seem like the right ending. It just seemed like an odd ending.
Bonsai, dead.
I think you're right. Bonsai jumping into the next dimension.
I didn't.
Dang it!
I missed that clutching the chute because I just.
Well, I saw it.
I just thought
I saw it, and I was like, no, he's got to be having closure because he wanted to commit suicide the first time. It's got to be like some kind of reflection. He's like creating closure with this, but I think you're right. I think he committed suicide.
Wait.
Okay.
So, I was just looking this up. So the pilot chute is basically like the smaller chute that that I guess like has something to do with the bigger chute opening up. But there is a way to just throw it out. Like
Okay, Rami. If it had just been clutching the pilot chute, just the last line, fine. But because it was that piece before that was referencing that he hid something. Yeah, and referencing that he hid something, probably a suicide from his girlfriend or suicidal thoughts, then the fact that it comes back into play later is what makes it more convincing for me. Like, I think you're right if it was the only time you hear about it, but it isn't.
And the fact that after that it says, now I am a ghost Bonsai. Yeah, I think she's right. I think she's right on this. I'll give it to Anais. Yeah, I'm not happy about it. It makes me even less happy with the story.
That he's dead.
I liked it better when it was a reflection of what he had experienced earlier, and it was some sort of closure. And I'm not even a like Rami like type of reader where I want everyone to like have closure and learn something. But I kind of wanted him to have closure and learn something. Dang it, Rami, you're
because look, even when she was jumping, he says at the top of the railing, she grips her pilot chute. So that's how they did it. They held the.
Yeah, that's how they jump when they're
It doesn't mean
jumping.
like that they just kind of kept it to themselves. So I'm gonna go ahead and believe that he didn't commit suicide.
But then why that weird thing about the whole like, I didn't tell her about the time that I was going to jump clutching the pilot chute?
Because we're learning more about him. That's character development. We're learning that the first time he jumped, he actually wanted to kill himself.
That's what I'm saying.
And
Yeah.
he keeps jumping as a reminder that he's alive and he's choosing to be alive.
Yeah.
I think that line for me actually had multiple shades of meaning that I really appreciated. But the ending was ambiguous to me.
Yeah.
I can see it how you're reading it. I originally read it how Rami's reading it. I don't know. The story confuses me. Gerald?
It's ambiguous. It doesn't confuse me. I think either way this I think there's a good character arc. I think you either if he doesn't commit suicide, then he's gone from his ordered life, he's gone to a sort of slightly disordered life with someone that he doesn't want to lose, and then he's back into that ordered life, or he's ordered, disordered, and then realizes that he can't ever be happy because whoever comes into his life, he's going to be afraid of losing. So yeah, it's a bit of a stretch to go from there to committing suicide, but never mind.
I mean, this story confuses me on so many levels. Oh my goodness. Were there any parts of the story that stood out for you guys?
Loads.
Loads. That's good.
I thought there was some humor in his. I thought the writer was poking fun at the sort of mystical Eastern beliefs that he had. I thought there were some quite funny parts in there.
How did you feel about those parts, Anais?
I felt like there was a little bit of, like Gerald saying, it was a little funny how he's just like pulling anything that anyone in the East had basically said, especially if they're martial artists. One thing I wish was explored a little more was the Thunderbird aspect. Maybe because I read Neil Gaiman's American Gods, and there's this really cool scene with the Native American Thunderbirds, and they're like having like some like crazy lightning fight, and there's like mountains of skulls. Anyway, so I was like, oh great, Thunderbirds again. I didn't make that connection to the rest of the story. So I don't know.
There was symbolism there that he didn't really explore.
Yeah,
it was left unexplored. There were parts of the story that I found beautiful, but the Eastern philosophy parts I actually found annoying and grating.
I think it was supposed to be, though.
I hope it was supposed to be. Otherwise, I was just annoyed and grated. Because I've known, you in like your early 20s, there's those guys that are like, I'm a Bushido code. They play Magic Gathering all day and video games, and they spout like weird philosophies, and that's kind of what he reminded me of. And I was like, I hope that is part of his characterization, and that isn't the author trying to insert meaning through random touches of Eastern philosophy, which happens and always annoys me because it does smell a little bit of, I don't know, new agey appropriation. No. And so I wasn't sure, but there was some humor, but it didn't make me laugh. At no point did this story make me actually laugh. Yeah, I felt like the story was very serious, and I felt like it took itself very seriously.
Well, yes, but I think there were quite a few humorous moments. I tell you a part that sort of makes me think that he's using the Eastern philosophy as a bit of a joke, because when he's talking to her early on, he says, single silver jangles on her wrist, her lips are thin and faded, her collarbone spreads like a shadowy albatross above her chest. I'm thinking, blue triangle, blue triangle. It's just, you see, you laugh now. There you go. so it's funny.
The new agey version of think of your mother, think of your mother.
Exactly.
Yeah, I definitely read it that way. I don't think the author is like Eastern, therefore genuinely better. I think he's like, this is that guy.
This is that guy.
That guy.
We've all known that guy.
Yeah.
and it's another bit when they're in his apartment and he says, all the Kokyunage body throws end up with us wrestling and then getting pretty dirty on the carpet. So I think, So I think he's got a very light touch with this Eastern philosophy, and I think he's showing that it's not doing the guy any good to believe in all this stuff.
One thing that I thought was done really well was the fact that he felt older than he is. Like, originally I thought he was significantly older. And then there were these hints that actually he was younger, but his experience had aged him. And I thought that was portrayed really well.
Yeah,
Go on.
I was going to say he felt his age to me, I think, because he was so lost belief-wise, which I see as a youth thing. And I see it in my generation right now.
Okay, yeah, I had him down as quite a bit older, and it surprised me when it said later on that he was 27 or 28 or something.
28, yeah.
And I thought I had him well into his 30s, maybe 40s.
Yeah, me too. But drugs will do that to you.
Well, also maybe him being a park ranger. I always think of park rangers as older.
Old grizzly old men, is that what you're saying?
It's too old, but I mean like
gentle Ben. Actually, that reference is old enough. You guys probably have no idea what I just said. I suddenly feel really old. They're like, nope, we don't know who Gentle Ben was.
Yeah.
Okay. Was there anything else you guys want to talk about this story before we go ahead and rate it?
Yeah, the topic. I really liked this topic of base jumping and this sort of lifestyle. I don't think it's explored too much. I think it was personally relevant to me because I have a friend whose brother died in a base jumping accident. But he was doing something, he was doing the wingsuit thing where like you look
right.
like a wombat, and it's kind of like, but
I
there's a
love those
parachute
things.
as well. But yeah, there's some serious risks involved, and unfortunately, he passed away.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's sad. Okay, well, now we're all bummed out.
We're bummed, yeah.
Sad and depressed for the episode.
Yeah.
That is really sad, though.
Yeah. I also wanted to comment that there was this other kind of motif about like the universe and the void and the center of the, like, when referencing death, there was never actually like any sort of God. And there was one line where he talks about when he's like realizing, it's solitude isn't the way to go, things come in pairs. And he talks about how like moons circle planets, and he says, because something in the cosmos is trying to keep itself company. I really like that line.
I love that line.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. I really love that line.
Yeah.
I gotta say. That was my favorite line in the entire story.
Yeah.
Oh,
I love that.
Yeah.
I love the first paragraph, and in the second sentence he says barges moan down the Mississippi. I thought, what a lovely line. Really, really nice. It's just great introduction to the story.
Yeah.
Yeah, there was some good writing in here, and I think that's one of the reasons why the second half of the story let me down so much. I'm a lot less let down if there's weak points in a story, if the story doesn't like set me up for like huge expectations. And I felt like the beginning, the first half of the story was so strong that it made the weaknesses in the second half even more dramatic for me, because there was just so much strength in the writing of that first half. The writing, the characterizations, the motifs, the symbolism was just so strong.
The perceived and apparent weaknesses of the second half.
I don't even necessarily
Poor
call them
Gerald.
weaknesses. It's almost one of those things where it's like, if the entire story was written in the second half, I'd still enjoy it. But having just come off that first one, which was so much better, I noticed it.
Where does the
My
second
thing
half?
was-
Oh, go ahead.
My thing was that my problem is that there's a point where the story feels like it ends, and then when it continues, it's not engaging, and then the story re-engages me later on, and it feels almost like there were two short stories and then he pasted them together, or that there was a short story and he was told he needs to make it longer, and he started to make it longer, and it took him a little bit to catch his wind. That space in between is where he loses me. And if it was smushed together, I wouldn't have a problem.
Wait,
But that space in between is the part that really got me.
but I don't think there wasn't. Where would you have wanted it like to end? Because I was looking. So my question is, where does the second half of the story begin for you? Because that line about planets and stuff, I would say that falls in the second half.
Yeah. There was strong. There was like, it was like strong, then weak, then strong again. And let me see here if I can pull it up. Like, it took a little bit for me to get re-engaged. Nope. We promised never to do it again.
Because it wouldn't have made sense just to end there. That's what I mean.
No. But he needed to do a different sort of transition. If the transition had been stronger, he wouldn't have lost me before everything started up out again. That whole section where he's visiting his father.
Yeah. Oh, Gerald said this, like maybe.
Yeah, that whole section is a lull.
Yeah.
It is a lull. And I feel like it starts up again when they're at her mother's house. Yeah. That's where it got interesting again.
It's funny. I actually thought the mother's house scene was more boring than the father's scene, the other way around, because the boring is such a harsh word. I shouldn't say boring. Lull was a bigger, like the interaction with the mother. I was like, it didn't.
What got me at the mother's house wasn't the interaction with the mother. It was the fact that the interaction with the mother tells you what's bothering Erica. It enlightens Erica's character. But the point that was most interesting about the visit to the mother's house was when he was packing her parachute. And he was so meticulous, and every thread, every fold, it's written about in such a way that you know that he is going through real turmoil in packing this shoot, and that he is being so careful because he is petrified. And I felt like that's the point where I was re-engaged with the story.
Well, I just realized something as you were talking too. Also in the mother's house, I don't understand why he spent any time describing how meticulously pruned and perfect and trimmed the garden is. The mother is also having crazy discipline and control to cope with her cancer. It just like hit me now. Well,
Yeah.
yeah.
There was a lot of reflecting going on, but that whole little section where he visits his dad, that was the weakest part of the story to me. And it let me drop out of the story so that I had to re-engage again. And that's something that I can't let go lightly.
Well, you're so harsh.
I'm not harsh. You see me. Like there are stories that come in I hate, and like Delira, like I can turn around. I can like give a writer credit. But yeah, that was a significant problem for me. Are we ready to rate this puppy?
I think so.
Okay, who wants to go first?
Okay, me. 5.5. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, of course. It's a great story.
Okay.
Great story. That lull is the only sort of downside to it, but I loved it.
Rami?
5.25. No, 5. I'll go with 5.
I'm with Rami.
Okay.
5.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm gonna feel like such 3.5.
What?
I know.
I almost gave it a 4.5, but then I realized the things that bothered me didn't bother me that much, to be honest. So it's 5.
Well, when I stop because I think a story is over and I have to scroll back because I'm confused, that is a critical error to me.
But
And that is an error that I cannot rate highly for.
Obviously wasn't over.
Tell us how you really feel, Gerald.
Not me. I'm very shy. You know that.
Yeah, you're very shy. You don't let us know how you're feeling at all. There are just certain errors that I feel like are a bigger ding than others. And if the reader is confused and is scrolling and thinks the story's over and it's not, that to me is a critical error.
Yeah, if that happened to you, I understand you.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
But I had a little sassy, like, yeah, if that was your experience, Maya. Wasn't mine.
No, it's better, Gerald. But you're wrong.
Sure.
Said it like it is.
Okay, so what are we submitting for next week? I am submitting The Bus by Brock Clark.
I'm going again because I forgot to find something else. Snow by Zhu Xiaobin.
A handful of dates, Rami?
I forgot that you're not saying anything. Yes, A Handful of Dates by Sayed Salah.
That's really funny. You're like, you're going to submit that again, are you?
Yeah, it's a handful of dates. Okay. I want to read it, though, so guess well.
That was pretty funny, though.
Yeah, because there's no way you guys are going to know the answers to this. I didn't know what to make the story about unless it was like base jumping protocol. And that's no. So instead,
Yeah, I'm happy you didn't pick that.
I mean, what can it possibly be? Or maybe base jumping records? No. So instead, I decided I'm going to go with Native American monsters because of the Thunderbirds.
Oh, cool.
I know. But it's all right. It's multiple choice, Rami. You just guess your way there like everyone else.
All right.
Okay. Let's be real.
Don't give away our secrets. The listeners think we're really smart. Why would you ruin that?
They must be really stupid.
And you can send your complaints to mail@literaryroadhouse.com.
Send it to Author Gerald at whatever, on Twitter. Okay. I'm going to go Maya, Rami, Gerald. Maya. Skinwalkers are medicine men who reach the pinnacle of priesthood and use their powers for evil. In order to gain the ability to shapeshift, what must a skinwalker do so they can turn into animals? To get that power, they must eat the heart of a bat, or kill a close relative, or stab out their own eyes under a full moon.
Stab out their own eyes under a full moon.
Nope. Kill a close relative.
Oh, really?
Oh,
Kill a
I
close
almost said that too.
I would have said
I should
that.
know that.
Oh, okay.
Very tricksy.
Mm.
Okay, Rami. Two-faced is the translation of a monster that is two-faced. Delights in killing, torturing, and sometimes eating victims. Is also known by a different name. Is it sharp elbows, big teeth, long claws?
Big teeth?
Sharp elbows.
Oh, okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, totally.
Wow.
I love how you said that. Like it was totally obvious.
Of course it does.
Everyone knows that. Gerald.
You.
The uktena is a large horned serpent and is said to have lucky scales. If you can get your hands on one, they're almost impossible to kill. But there is a way to kill it. Do you kill it by shaving off its horn, shooting it in the seventh scale from its head, or burning its forked tongue?
The first one.
Nope. It's shooting the seventh scale from its head.
I knew that one too.
It was oddly specific.
Wow.
I realized as I said it. Okay.
It's oddly specific and it informs a lot of sci-fi. Dragons. Like how many dragon stories you have to shoot like a specific scale? That's where it comes
Smog. I thought of smog, yeah. Okay.
Okay.
Maya. The stiff-legged bear is said to have tusks long enough to puncture 7 hunters. There's only one small problem about this stiff-legged bear. Is it that it can't run? Or that if it lies down, it can't get back up? Or that it's too tall to reach down and eat humans?
Too tall to reach down and eat humans.
Nope. If it lies down, it can't get back up. That's this is the
I've
monster.
fallen and I can't get up.
Okay. Rami.
Needs a metal alert bracelet.
This monster isn't too scary. It's the perverted merman. He lurks in rivers and watches women bathe. That's his thing. But there is a way.
Sure, it wasn't a guy, and then when he got caught, he said, "I'm a monster."
I'm a merman.
Exactly. That monster exists.
There is a way, though, to rob him of his magical powers of peeping Tom. I don't know. But how do you rob him of his magical powers? Do you hang him upside down, cut his hair, or steal his clothes?
Point at him and yell.
Steal his clothes.
All right, let's go with Maya's answer.
Yeah, steal his clothes.
Woohoo! Thanks, Maya, with the assist.
You're welcome. Someone's got to get one.
Yeah. Gerald. Flying heads are undead winged human skulls that eat people. How do you kill them? Feed them a hearthstone, feed them a beehive, feed them fire kindling.
Fire kindling.
Nope, hearthstone. Very close. Okay. Maya. Mishibizhui is an underwater panther who drowns victims. It has fins or plates on its back, like a armadillo, a dolphin, or a stegosaurus.
Stegosaurus.
Yeah, like a stegosaurus. Yeah. Rami. Owls came from the death of an owl woman monster. In order to create the owl species, what part of her body did they use? Did they make owls from her eye, her wings, or her neck?
Eyes.
Yep.
Whoa.
Rami leading the pack.
He knows
Actually, I think
stuff.
you win, but Gerald. Tehihan are cannibal dwarves. What do they use as interior decor? The blood of victims, heart of their dwarf relative, like literally hanging up hearts, or bison poop.
Blood of the victims.
Nope, it's the hearts of their relatives. There's apparently one folklore where a hunter gets captured by a dwarf cannibal, and then he sees the hearts on the wall, and he starts stabbing the hearts to kill the relatives, and it works.
Wow.
I don't understand.
Yeah.
He's just chilling there. Okay, so Rami won.
Three.
Okay.
Rami,
Thanks, Maya. What's
thanks
up?
to Maya. What are we reading?
Yeah. I just slipped that right out on accident.
We
So I get a big mouth.
are going to read A Handful of Dates by Tayyib Salah, translated by Dennis Johnson Davies.
Three.
Finally.
Finally.
Yeah.
Now you're going to have to find a new story.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I know, that's the bad one. Anyway.
But before you go and read a handful of dates, did you know that our website, literaryroadhouse.com, is the gateway arch between you and us? On the one side, your thoughts. On the other side, our eyes. Let us know what you thought of this story. Also, the life of this podcast is in your hands, and leaving a review on iTunes, Stitcher, and Spreaker is like carefully folding a parachute for us. Go on, we trust you. Are you looking for more literary thrills? Jump into our other shows, the Literary Roadhouse Book Club and the Bradbury Challenge. And as always, share this podcast with your Thunderbird friends. Until next time, read a good story.
Read a good story.
Well done, Anais.
Go ahead. We trust you.
Go ahead.
Yeah.
I'm not scared.
Great episode, guys.